viral disease, and then there is another disease that farmers said is quite new, involving embryo abortions of maize ears, and to an extent that there is usually no ear formation. So we are yet to verify that in the field. Unfortunately, by the time we visited the study sites, maize had already been harvested, so we didn't make verifications. Blights of maize are also a problem. Then under soya, under groundnuts, the most prevalent disease is rosette, with a percent response of 71.4%. For beans, is bean yellows, with a percent response of 42.9%. Maize with a percent response very high of 85.7%, so it's for armyworm causing a havoc in maize fields. For soybeans, caterpillars are also ranked highly with a percent response of 42.9%. Beans, it was found that bean beetles are also causing high yield losses in the transform sites with a percent response of 71.4%. Again, these are just some of the pictures showing insect infestations on various leafy horticultural crops being grown in transform study sites in the north. We also went ahead to look at various technologies or methods that farmers are using to manage these various pests, and we found that for worms, they are using various methods, the use of sand, ammonia, some chemicals such as cypermethrin, physical killing, botanicals, and for termites that also ranked highly for maize particularly. Some farmers are using ash, urine, and a chemical known as Covido. Whilst for groundnuts, we found that rodents were also causing high infestations in the area, and farmers said they are generally difficult to control on groundnuts. Rodents, this includes rats. For beans, bean beetles are a problem, and cypermethrin is usually being used, is commonly being used by farmers in these study sites. For plant diseases, we also tried to find out from farmers through their perceptions. They said for maize streak, they are managing it by uprooting and throwing the plants within the field. And for head smut, they uproot and throw the plant within the field also. Otherwise, for the rest of the diseases affecting soybeans, groundnuts, beans, babana nuts, pigeon peas, sweet potatoes, tomatoes, pili-pili, which all these crops are being promoted, transformed, it was found that farmers don't have any, they are not using any management measure. They just observe on the plants and they don't do anything. So we establish a very big knowledge gap there, and that may need further training and also research. Major issues requiring research, again, we documented this list based on the perceptions that farmers have, and the farmers are recommending that there should be best practices in climate smart agriculture, so research should be conducted on that, and also They highly recommended identification and management of pests and diseases, including weeds. And the percent responses were very high, 85.7 and 85.7 for both those suggestions. And the use of best agronomic production practices, especially for horticultural crops, also ranked moderately high. Areas of research on best practices on climate-smart agriculture, under that category, farmers specifically emphasized on research to be conducted on testing on area-specific research where soil fertility levels are supposed to be checked. So that was highly recommended with a percent response of 57.1%. They also recommended research on crop-specific soil adaptation to say for the particular crops that Transform is promoting. Are there any other situations where a particular crop is not performing well in one area but is doing well in another, so that when Transform is promoting these crops, it has to know where to emphasize, or the kind of recommendations for farmers to adopt a particular crop and grow it to avoid yield losses. Then, on issues requiring training, farmers, most of them indicated that they needed training on pest and disease identification and management. So we just lumped it for pests and diseases, but it's the disease component that ranked highly. Oops. Okay. In conclusion, the study findings have provided an inventory of a diversity of Transform-promoted crops, and it has also provided insights to real challenges that farmers are facing in Transform sites, implementation sites, and it has also offered opportunities on how the various pests and diseases can be managed through research and training. So these are some of the recommendations that we drew together with the farmers, that a baseline survey needs to be conducted on prevalence of major pests and diseases, and Transform program should also lobby with government on establishment of a commission for crops, for other major crops in the country, such as maize, soybeans, and groundnuts. And this was emphasized in several EPAs. Just like it's being done with tobacco, they strongly recommended that should do the same. They also recommended that there should be improved accessibility of high quality seed. They cited that in some situations there was some element of cheating, where farmers would buy seed from an agro dealer labeled, let me just give an example, it's not specific, labeled Njovu, but when they grow it, they will discover that the characteristics, the morphological characteristics of the crop is not typical of Njovu, but maybe of Kanyani. So the farmers are feeling cheated. So they need an improvement on that. They also recommended the challenge of seed quality. I think it's a mixture of the other issues to do with seed purity and viability. And they also recommended strongly participatory breeding for improved varieties, using some of the indigenous varieties that they do have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We think call upon the previous presenter as well, so that you both come in front so that the audience can interact with you. Thank you.
And start with the presentation on youth entrepreneurship. Or was it a question for this current presenter? That side? The current one? Okay. Then we'll start with the current presenter, then we'll go backwards to the youth entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much. I was looking at recommendation number 2. How is it coming in? I listened to the presentation. It was about technologies. Then from nowhere, I might have, of course, missed it. Then there is price regulation. Was it covered? That's my first question. The second one is on control of 4 armyworms. Yeah? On cultural practices, you have mentioned different cultural practices that farmers are using and to control 4 armyworms. Did you go further to rank by asking the farmers to rank the cultural practices, which ones are working or just documented? Then I wanted to find out how clearly have you separated practices and technology within your study? I was, lost when you were presenting. So maybe you can clearly separate the two so that I understand. Thank you.
Okay, can we have another question to the same presenter? Does anyone also have a question to the same presenter? All right.
Thank you. He'll start and then you'll be next.
Interesting that Bonya soup would have that effect. So it would be interesting to, in your further research, to understand why and how Bonya soup would have that effect, and to what extent it's significant. But my concern, I don't know whether concern is the right word, is on the huge variety of crops being promoted.
Yeah, we can have one more.
Thank you very much. I'm Shaibu. I'm looking at the recommendations that you have made, starting from recommendation bullet 2 to 5. Is it? You are talking of lobbying for establishment of a commission, and you are saying for major crops with those examples. I don't know how you have ranked them to become major crops, because in the agricultural industry, it's a dynamic system. A crop can become major today, tomorrow it may not be major, depending on the situations on the ground. So I don't know how we should go up to the extent of establishing a commission. I'm not sure how you came up with this recommendation. The other one, the improving accessibility of high quality seed. I don't also know the problems that are there, because already on the market in terms of seed, we have a number of players, and these seeds, to us, we have the SSU, Seed Services Unit, which was established to ensure that the production of seed should be regularized. And anything that goes into the market, as long as it has passed through that, we expect that to be of quality. So what should be the improvement in terms of accessibility? What are we talking about? Then addressing seed quality challenges, particularly on the seed purity and viability. This is also another job for the SSU, because anything that we call seed has to undergo a certain system of production, which we already have. So which challenges are there that we're talking about, purity and viability? All these things are already done, unless we are talking of certain types of so-called seed, which is not seed. But especially breeding for improved varieties is also another recommendation that I feel needs some clarification. Because when breeders have developed certain technologies, in this case we're talking about varieties, after they have done the work on station level, they go to the field to do some trials with the farmers. And I thought that could also be an area where we should be able to say, okay, this variety is doing better here and it's not doing better at a certain point, and then we recommend where that particular variety should be grown. Of course, participation is okay, but I think the way it has been put here, I don't think it's within the context that it can address the issues that are out there. So I think you may need to clarify on those areas. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the last one here.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah. Thomas Chigo. I will two, if not one, simple one. Very simple. You had talked about some researchable areas. Notable ones is to do with some research on climate smart agriculture. And yeah, I just wanted to know the lifespan of Transform program, because if you are to say about researchable areas, I think minimum we're talking of 3 years. Then on recommendations, I don't know to whom are these recommendations addressed to. Is it to the general public, LUANAR, or government? Yeah, why I'm asking this is because one is to do the same with the lifespan of the Transform program, because if it has a year to go, then maybe on the researchable areas, sort of recommendations, I think then we need to know whom those recommendations are being addressed to. Yeah, I think I can stop there. Thank you.
Yeah. She can respond.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much for the questions. Let me begin with the very last one. And also, just also to mention that based on the topic, the study was trying to find out the perceptions by farmers. So it wasn't necessarily researcher-based. Then for most of the recommendations that I've included on this slide, where as has been noticed by several members who have raised their questions, they are not like directly linked to the content that I have presented, but they are issues that farmers really felt are very important, and they emphasized that we should not miss them in the report. So much as the way the topic has been framed and the content was like that, like presented, but I just wanted to respect the views of the farmers that we really need to report on this, because these are the areas that are also affecting them most. So like for issues to do with whom are we addressing this to, the recommendations, I would say that as a team, we can have this discussed, because I remember one member was suggesting that maybe SIPA should come in to help in issues to do with seed purity and viability and so on. So it's something that we don't have solutions, because these are ideas that we got from farmers, and even the farmers, they don't really have ideas on how they can solve this. That's why they requested us to bring it over. And on, again, lifespan of the Transform program, based on the recommendations that we have developed, not necessarily we have, but recommendations that are coming from the farmers, I would say that we just need to start the ball rolling. If we are to wait until there's a big program that has a bigger lifespan, then things may as well not move. So my thinking is that for a start, maybe Transform can provide the funds, whatever they have for the few years they are in operation. Thereafter, we never know, someone might take over. And then on that also addresses issues to do with research areas, I guess. Those are questions from Thomas. Then as regards the clarification on participatory breeding, what farmers were suggesting was that they are usually surprised to note that contract farmers are usually given such contracts, and they multiply the seed within their EPAs. And yet, farmers are forced to buy the seed after the seed has been taken to seed companies, and then the seed is also taken back to them. So they were like, can't we really have such programs within the communities so that the seeds don't have to move back and forth? And so on seeds, that's one of the issues that also came in, and they thought if they would have loved if they are involved in breeding and even multiplication of seed. And again, I've forgotten the other question. improvement of accessibility of high quality seed. What farmers were, the reason why farmers recommended this was that much as there is availability of certified seed, especially for maize within the country, but for the majority of farmers, they are very poor to afford the prices that are usually attached to the seed. So the seed is too expensive for the poor farmers, and that's why there was a suggestion to have it multiplied within their EPAs. So the problem is not to do with the availability of this certified seed, but its accessibility by the farmers. Others can't access it because of financial issues. And on why government should lobby government on establishment of a commission, again, it's not part and parcel of the presentation, but as I said, farmers strongly recommended that this should not be missed.
Yeah,
Then,
thank you very much, Ms. Sincere. I think we should just give at least one opportunity for him to answer a question. So for the questions that have not been addressed, you bear with us. For time constraint, we'll take or not all the questions, and I think we can interact with the presenters outside the presentation. Thank you for this insightful and wonderful presentation that you've shared with us. Thank you very much. Now, I think we can have at least 2 minutes. We have a minute for break, so at least a few minutes just to interact with Aubrey. So let's be precise with the questions and, take the floor. Aubrey, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mine is a comment on the ICT use and the profitability of young agripreneurs. I expected that on the recommendations, you should extend those also to the other stakeholders. It's a fact that internet remains unaffordable in Malawi, particularly for an average Malawian. Internet speed is getting worse by the day in Malawi against global average. Now, there's need for Malawi government to reduce taxes for ICT products. There's need to make these products, ICT products and their innovations, affordable to an average Malawian. So the recommendation should also extend to Malawi government on that one. The other recommendation should go to service providers, like the internet service providers and the mobile network providers. They need to make substantial investments to improve the network speed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your wonderful comment.
Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Kalasa from Aret. Wanted to know if these youths were also purposively sampled as agripreneurs. No, they were sampled from Dedza in Lilongwe. So I wanted to specifically know if these were agripreneurs, i.e. they were running an agriculture business, or they were just youths. Wanted to know that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for an inspiring presentation. So from the message that I got from the presentation is that ICT use drives profitability. So I was wondering if you considered that those that are able to access ICT services are also better off, maybe for instance, in terms of income. So how do we separate that effect? Could it be that they're already better off, that's why they are more profitable, or is it because they are using ICT solutions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your questions. To start with the first one, these were not just any other youth, but after selecting Lirongwandeza, and then we selected the EPAs. So in that EPAs, with help from district agriculture officers, we got a list of course, maybe it was not exhaustive, but we got a list of various youth that are engaged in different agribusinesses. So from that list is where now we randomly selected those youths that were involved in various agribusinesses. So it wasn't just another youth, but specifically those that were involved in various agribusinesses. For the second question, I should say that that's one of the limitations of the study. If you can access the full paper, we did acknowledge that our study did not manage to look into this causality, that maybe, yes, indeed, sometimes it might be because you are better off, you can easily access the ICTs, or the other way around. But even though that might be possible, with the course of the internet and the like, and also looking at the literature, we found out that there is a minimal chance that that might be possible. But it is possible. So we did recognize that that's one of the limitations that our study did not take into account. But if there can be a way in which that can be measured, then suggestions are all welcome, so that maybe that can also be an area of further research that can maybe improve our paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If there are no questions and comments, let's give a big applause to, oh, there's one more question. Okay. Just one quick one, please. Yeah.
A very interesting paper. Thank you so much for the way that you have approached the subject. I like the question that he raised in terms of winning out other explanatory variables effect on your data. But in terms of impact, this paper qualifies for extensive outreach. And for me, the Ministry of Information and Digitization is a target for outreach. Another institution for outreach, because you're addressing the issue of youth, it would be nice also to see whether women would be targeted. And therefore, NIF becomes an important agent for outreach in terms of their loans for various economic activities. It would be nice to see whether, in terms of promoting access to tools, the loans structure in NIF could integrate perhaps a subsidy to try and promote access to the gadgets themselves. And I subscribe to the comment made by Councillor Mseka here in terms of the cost of the internet itself. So those are, for me, are areas where we could actually promote and interact with our players out there as a form of outreach. Thank you.
That's a wonderful comment. Thank you.
Yeah, so let us give an applause to all the presenters that I've had this morning. Thank you very much. So just a quick take home, I think, from this morning's session is that we have had presentation, as you might have already maybe observed, from nutrition and public health for sustainable agriculture intensification. And we touched upon also issues on agriculture entrepreneurship diversification, which will continue after the break. For now, I would like a quick check through for preparing the presentation that will come after break. Do we have TACOM X et al. On the paper Land Use and Cover Change Dynamics in Zambia? Is the presenter in the house? Kaira Taonga? Sandra Mopibi? I think he's just gone out. I think he's around. Mamlima S? Anyone? And Kachule PL et al. Okay, thank you. Otherwise, thank you very much for being a wonderful audience. I hope you'll come back to still learn more insightful presentation after the break. It's 15 minutes, so we come back here around 1:45. Thank you very much.
Ine dzina langa ndine Silveria Gama, nama ndize kuti ndine Maishibwe. Kuno kwathu kwakesera transform ikulimbikitsa zinthu zambiri. Tili ndi sukulu imene timaphunzirapo nkhani ya ulimi. Ndipo tikapita pa sukulu pacha timakambirana kuti kodi pamenepa ulimi wa manyowa niwoti tingochera chimanga umene tikhoza kupindula nawo ni uti. Ndete kambirana ngati gulu angali apa tidaona kuti ulimi wa manyowa nde kuti numene ukhoza kutipindulira chifukwa tidaona kuti chimanga chothira manyowa ndi chimanga chimene tangothira fertilizer ngakhale makudo ake chimasiyana. Ndipo pano patiphunziranso ulimi wa maenje. Ulimi wa maenje umenewu umatithandiziraso kwambiri nkhani ya kusintha kwa nyengo. Mudziwa masiku ano ikuteko ng'amba ndi maenje ajawo amatithandiziraso ukolola madzi. Muja tikakumba zenjerija taimene kwachita ng'amba ife sidandola kwambiri nkhani ya ng'amba ngati chimanga cha maenje chathu. Timaona kuti yayi tikakalowamo ndi kuti dzenje lathu lija lakolola madzi ndi ngakhale vula chite ng'amba kwa 2 weeks timaona kuti chimanga isi chifuraso ayi. Moti kuno kwathu transform yatiphunzitsa zinthu zambiri. Mwananso mmene mwaona madimbawa. Madimba amenewa kwathu kuna kuthandiza kwambiri. Fuka mbuyo mukwambiri azimayi timakonda odalira mwina azibambo. Kumene apitako tadikira kuti odzatigulire tindiwo koma panopo timatoona kuti yayi ana asukulu pano pali pafupi kubwera ungolowa munkadimba kaja utengamo masamba momwayi tobweranso wina afuna kuguleko wenda tiwodetsako mwina wakugulako munaka 500 mumadziwa kuti mulimi akakhala wathazi na amene samagwira ntchito zachitukuko mokwanira ndifake tunena kuti transform kwathu kuno yatipindulira kwambiri moti munaonanso kuti kitchen imene ndinakhala pano nuphikira ineyo mbuyo mutu timangokoza ngati chimato matamata basi utenga jeni mafuwa atatu kumaphikirapo koma transform popitiriza tilimbikitsa takhalanso ndi kitchen monga amene muliona ndi maphikirali idatiphunzitsanso ukhala ni ukhondo wa pakhomo pathu monga amene mwaona kuti nili ni pondagiya apo ngakhale ana anga adawuzolowera kwambiri transform itatilimbikitsa nkhani ya ukhondo wa pakhomo monga muonera mpondagiyawo inenso nauyamikira kwambiri chifukwa ngakhale matenda otsegula mimba pakhomo panga pano ndiye kuti adachepako ndiponso ningoti adatha chifukwa chakuti ine nusamala ngati za ukhondo pameneponso tayikaponso gawo la kadyedwe kwabwino kusonyeza kuti khomo lathuli china chilichonse ziyenda bwino kwambiri monga mmene munoneramo ndine wathazi chifukwa chani transform kwathu kuno yatilimbikitsa zinthu zambiri ndipo ili ni ubwino kwambiri moti timafunitsa kuti bungwe limeneli litapitiliza kuti litithandize ndithu fane masomphenya anga monga mmene muonera nyumbayi kuti yayi mafunitsa ndithu ni takhoma nyumbayi kuti ife chifukwa cha transform yufuna tisinthe kubwera kwa transform iyi ikutilimbikitsa kuti makomo mwathumu tisinthe a transform datiphunzitsanso ubwino wa banki ikhonde kapangidwa ka banki ikhonde ngati mbuyomu banki ikhondezo zinalipo ndithu koma zinali zopanda dongosolo mangopita pa chigulu wa banki ni imweyo koma transform yabweretsa ndithu dongosolo la banki ikhonde moti timadziwa kuti amayi awa ali ndi masheya okwana mwakuti chifukwa timaona tsiku limene agulira masheya ine dzina langa ndine Silveria Gama ena amandidziwa kuti ndine mayi Chibwe kuno kwathu kokesera transform ikulimbikitsa zinthu zambiri tili ndi sukulu imene timaphunzirapo nkhani ya ulimi ndipo tikapita pa sukulu pacha timakambirana kuti kodi pamenepa ulimi wa manyowa niwoti tingochera chimanga umene tikhoza kupindula nawo ni uti ndete kambirana ngati gulu angali apa tidaona kuti ulimi wa manyowa ndiye kuti numene ukhoza kutipindulira chifukwa tidaona kuti chimanga chothira manyowa ndi chimanga chimene tangothira fertilizer ngakhale magulu ake chimasiyana ndipo pano patiphunziranso ulimi wa maenje ulimi wa maenje umenewu umatithandiziranso kwambiri nkhani ya kusintha kwa nyengo mudziwa masiku ano ikuteko ng'amba ndi maenje ajawo amatithandiziranso ukolola madzi muja tikakumba dzenjelija nthawi imene kwachita ng'amba ife sidandaula kwambiri nkhani ya ng'amba ngati chimanga cha maenje chathu timaona kuti yayi tikakalowamo ndiye kuti dzenje lathu lija lakolola madzi ndiye ngakhale vula chite ng'amba wa 2 weeks timaona kuti chimanga ichi chifuraso ayi moti kuno kwathu transform yatiphunzitsa zinthu zambiri mwananso mmene mwaona madimba amenewa kwathu kuno akuthandiza kwambiri fuka mbuyomu kwambiri azimayi timakonda odalira mwina azibambo kumene apitako oti adikire kuti odzatigulire tindiwo koma panopo timatoona kuti yayi ana asukulu pano pali pafupi kubwera ungolowa munkadimba kaja utengamo masamba momwayi tobweranso wina afuna kuguleko wenda tiwodetsako mwina wakugulako munaka 500 mumadziwa kuti mulimi akakhala wathazi na amene samagwira ntchito zachitukuko mokwanira ndifake tunena kuti transform kwathu kuno yatipindulira kwambiri moti munaonanso kuti kitchen imene ndinakhala pano nuphikira ineyo mbuyo mutu timangokoza ngati chimato matamata basi utenga jeni mafuwa atatu kumaphikirapo koma transform popitiriza tilimbikitsa takhalanso ndi kitchen monga amene muliona ndi maphikirali idatiphunzitsanso ukhala ni ukhondo wa pakhomo Pakumo bathu monga mmene mwaona kuti nili ni mpondagiya apo ngakhale ananga adawuzolowera kwambiri. Transform itatilimbikitsa nkhani ya ukhondo wa pakhomo monga monera mpondagiyawo inenso nawuyamikira kwambiri chifukwa ngakhale matenda otsegula mimba pakhomo panga pano ndiye kuti adachepako ndiponso ningoti adatha chifukwa chakuti ine nusamala ngati za ukhondo pamene ponso tayikaponso gawo la kadyedwe kwabwino kusonyeza kuti khomo lathuli china chilichonse ziyenda bwino kwambiri monga mmene munoneramu. Ndine wathazi chifukwa chani transform kwathu kuno yatilimbikitsa zinthu zambiri ndipo ili ni ubwino wambiri moti timafunitsa kuti bungwe limeneli litapitiliza kuti litithandize ndithu fane masomphenya anga monga mmene mwionera nyumbayi kuti yayi mafunitsa ndithu ni takhoma nyumbayi kuti ife chifukwa cha transform ifuna tisinthe kubwera kwa transform iyi ikutilimbikitsa kuti makomo mwathumu tisinthe. Transform datipititsanso ubwino wa banki khonde kapangidwa ka banki khonde ngati mbuyomu banki khondezo zinalipo ndithu koma zinali zopanda dongosolo mangopita pa chigulu wa banka ni imweyo koma transform yabweretsa ndithu dongosolo la banki khonde moti timadziwa kuti amayi awa ali ndi masheya okwana mwakuti chifukwa timaona tsiku limene agulira masheya.
Alimi amene atayamba kugwira nawo ntchito chaka cha 2020 ndipo taphunzitsa amene angamalimire mbewu zosiyanasiyana alima mbewu soya, ntedza, chimanga komanso ngakhale zimene zimachasanga ngati mbatata. Ndi alimi amenewa akuchita bwino kwambiri monga alimi akuno kwane mshanda amodzi mwa alimi athu amene akuchita bwino. Komano mavuto alipo amene akakolola mbewu zija akusowa nazo kopita. Chimene chimachitika njoti asanakolole munda muja mbewu asanagulitse zikangoti zayamba kumene kucha mavenda amakhala kuti abwera kale adzalanda mbewu zija. Ngati panopo mmene tunena pano ndikuti soya, ntedza, chimanga atanikale mavenda atenga. Mtengo wake nthawi zina chimanga amapatsa pa ndowa 1.5. Nthawi zina thumba la soya lija limapita pa 4,000, nthawi zina 5,000, akakumana ndo koma mtima imafika kale 6,000, 7,000. Zotsatira zake alimi athu angolira umangolira mpaka kale mutati muone kumezi sikutukuka.
Ineyo nifuna nifotokoze nkhani yokhudzana ni misika kunoko ife ndife alimi timalima molimbika monga mudziwa kuti ntchito ya ulimi ni ntchito yovuta kwambiri ndipo imayambira patali koma timalephera kuti titukuke kuno kwathu kamba ka misika amene amatigula kuno mbewu ni mavenda moti mmene tilili panopa nkonena kuti mavenda adayamba kale oyenda chimanga soya zonse nzonena kuti ngati kumbali ya soya ndalama adatipatsa kale ife alimi amatipatsa ndalama yokwana 4,000 kwacha 5,000 kwacha pa thumba ndekuti tikadzakolola muja thumba lija tili kwantha nkupetapeta upakira 50 kg ndekuti soya uja iwo adzatenga koma pa mtengo woti anatipatsa ndalama yokwana 4,000 kwacha. Ifeyo kuno kwathu tuona kuti utukuka kwenikweni kudzativuta kamba koti misika kunoko kulibe.
Ane kutira ndamanga pamene akane zimene zakambozanga ngati kuli anthu olima ndife kuno ndipo ulima timalima chaka nchaka koma vuto uzathuwa le mavenda panopo mzatukamba chimanga adagulitsa kale tenga kale pandowa 1.5 tilandalanda ndiyati kamaone zimenezi njala sidzatha kuno kwathu monga mudziwa ife azimayi timagwira ntchito yathu yayitali kuchokera kumunda ndiye panopa adandaula te mavenda abwera kale akudzagula mbewu zathu motani mochipa atagulitsa kale. Tufuna kuti tidzagulitsa tokha kubomako misika yabwino sani imene ochita mavenda apanopa abwera kale udadzatilanda kale ayi tagulitsa kale chili munda chimangacho sichathu abwera nkokhala kuti obwere odzachitenge kandi amakamelo odatipasako tidadya kale timangacho sili chathu.
Timagulidwa mbewu motsika mtengo kwambiri woti ndalama imene timayipeza niyo tisingatipindulire ayi. Motolonga khale sukulu ana olephera kuti aphunzire kamba konena kuti fizi mativuta koma ndife anthu onena kuti kumbali ya ulimi timalimbikira kugwira ntchito koma misika nimene ili vuto kuno kwathu moti ni vuto lalikulu kwambiri kuno kwathu.
Ngati fa transform tabwera ndeta ambapo tsopano alimi kuti walimbikitse kuti akhale m'magulu akakhala m'magulu kuti azipeza misika yoti wina sabweraponso pakati venda uja sabwera koma okha azikambirana ife kwathu nkungu waphunzitsa akakhala pagulu paja ndeti atengenso akasake misika ja akasaka misika then adzagulitse.
Kuno mwafika kuno ni kumuzi wa Tenthema Mwandira VDC ya Kampala. Transform hii na mwili kufikira yati vwira chomene apo tikawa kuti hivi tindavimanye chati kasuzikanga munda wane uwu ukagimikanga na maji kwenye tatasambira hivi ya kupanga masware aga mbwenu munda usono maji kuti yakugimaso mkati munda chara aleka nitaona kuti transforma hii yati vwira chomene. Chito yake ya masware aga usange mvura yawa maji gakunjira mkati para maji umuganjira mkati gakuti wovwira kupereka chinyezi kuminda iyo ili kusika huko niko kuti mmano mwakusinda kwa nyengo niko kuti uko mbwenu kulongolenge kuti ngakusinda kwa nyengo ngakulije chikwa chakuti uko mtika ukuba unandi chikwa cha masware agati kukimaba. Huu munda ndio tukushema kuti push pull hii mkati umu muli uteka wene uo kuchimbizga vidodo sono uli kuwaro huu ndio ukupokelera chikwa kuti ukuba na sungo liwemi wa mkati huu ukuturuka sungo la kununga chomene ukuturuka sungo liwemi kamaro aga vikubaso na nkhongono ya kuti vitaire vikutondeka ndena mulili apa munda uu tindagwiriskepo mankhwara kuti tipoperecha chikwa cha kuteka nguni wati wene uli mkati panda njire vidodo kuti vipwate vingoma cha ndiposo uteka uli mkati uu nguwe mshomene chikwa cha kuti kaufiti wa kuchepa hapo wakamera chaka chamara kwenye chaka chino wanda chitevisho yati wanda merepo cha wamaliratu so uteka so wene uu yakurugaso cha vishi cha viveto vikurga makora viveto na kututua vishi na kututua makora ndio njito ya mulovwira kuti timanye vinandi. Ulimi woti kushita hapo ni ulimi wa makururu au woti kugima kufuma pakururu nyake kufika pakururu nyake ikuwa 75 sono pata gima kunjira kuyapasi
You are welcome. We are going to have the first presentation from Professor Kabambe. He's going to present research entitled Integrating Climate Smart Agriculture Technologies into Smallholder Farming Systems Prone to High Annual Climatic Variability in Chikwawa, the district of southern Malawi. So let me welcome Professor Kabambe. Just to mention that the presentations are for 10 minutes. We are going to take our first 2 presentations, each for 10 minutes, and then we are going to go into a question and answer session. Let me welcome Professor Kabambe.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator and everybody else. This work, let me use this slide to acknowledge people involved in this work. This work, of course, was conducted by us at Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, but it was a project supported by EU, but hosted by FAO, but LUANAR. So I would like to acknowledge everybody, including the farmers that we worked with, and the field staff, extension personnel we worked with in Chikwawa district. So with that then, I can proceed. Okay, I didn't familiarize enough. That's all right, good. Thank you very much. I'll be running through those ordinary sections of the presentations very quickly. First of all, very quick introduction is that we know that in Malawi, particularly in Chikwawa, it's a very difficult place to work with, very variable in rainfall. And in this particular study, in one year we had severe drought, in the other year we had severe floods, and it was difficult to work with farmers to find the best solutions. But according to literature also, in Southern Africa, basically, most of the area is always experiencing these changes, and just as an average, you tend to have 10 to 25% yield losses as a result of the variability in rainfall. So a lot of the technologies can be there if you have a short rainfall or erratic rainfall. You have a lot of technologies. If you have a little kind of floods, you have also, not floods, but too much water, you have some technologies that you can handle that. But in a particular year then, what do? You don't know what's happening in that year, so it's always difficult. But the technologies that are generally used to conserve water in the field, we call them in-situ rainwater harvesting technologies, and I've defined them there. They are the practices that store water in the areas water is going to be. So some of that storing can a little bit help with too much water, but mostly it helps with less water. So in this report, therefore, we were working with farmers to first of all appraise the technologies available and decide with the farmers which ones can we try and put in our fields and evaluate in the process. So we worked in Chikwawa. That's the average description of Chikwawa. I'm saying average. When you go there, you may not get any of that in reality, because of the variability. But quickly, so when we worked in the area, the farmers had prioritized that maize system is the main one, but there are many other cropping systems that are part of the variability management, which the different crops and so on, but including livestock. But for us, after noting that, but we focused on the crops. And in this case, we were there in the winter in which there was, in fact, we were in a disaster season. So there was just a disaster, too much rain in the summer, so we were working with farmers in that winter. And so what